staying. I'm supposed to go somewhere else tomorrow, but maybe I'll just stay here.
I think you should.
I think I should.
So Hazel, I loved this book. And I think part of the reason I loved it is because I am a Kansan. But the other thing that I loved about it, and I told you this in the parking lot so I wouldn't make you cry while you were up here.
I'm just about holding it together, Jillian. Come on.
I think that this book brings the black and white part of The Wizard of Oz to full color.
I mean, that's just amazing. Amazing. You should have had that on the cover.
Oh, ask me next novel, okay? So
there's a paperback coming out in the UK. I'm saying, well, you just have a new quote to add it.
Yes, you do. So I took my battered copy with me to Europe, which is funny because you're here in Kansas now. And I very badly, to all librarians, I'm so sorry, I earmarked this because this is such a Kansas first paragraph that I would love for you to read.
Wow, and now I will put my glasses on. I was at an event in Lichfield by the Sea a couple of days ago, and there was a raffle for a giveaway, and I tried to read the raffle ticket without my glasses on, and I was reading it upside down. Surprisingly, nobody won. It was a really beautiful copy of The Wizard of Oz, and anyway, we sorted it out. But okay, so this is an extract from Wonderful, A Life on the Prairie by Emily Gale. Kansas winds are different from anything I'd ever known, whipped into great swirling, twisting funnels with the strength to tear up centuries-old trees and knock down homes as if they were nothing more than a deck of playing cards stacked into a flimsy tower. Nature wields a different power here. You can either let it scare you, or you can stand up and face it. Courage means something different here too. I believed we would be rewarded for putting our trust and our hearts into this ancient land. But I was wrong to think the prairie might care about us the way we cared about it. It is a wild animal that won't be tamed, no matter how much you think you can trust it, or how many naive fools come here to try. It is unforgiving and cruel, and yet it can be beautiful and generous. It is a treacherous enemy, and yet a faithful friend. On the prairie, everything is exaggerated. The winds blow stronger, the sun burns hotter, the hailstones are bigger, the losses are greater.
It's different when you get to finally come to the place where your novel is set.
The winds are so much hotter.
Writing it is not the same as experiencing it, right?
Right.
So tell me about, I know you've been working on this book for a very long time. This is not last year's project. You just happened to sandwich it in between the Wicked franchise, which is just apropos. You know, that's just great luck. But tell me how long you have had Emily Gale's story in your head.
Well, yeah, and timing's a wonderful thing. No pun intended, but to be having this book about Auntie Em and stepping into the world of The Wizard of Oz when it is having a real pop culture resurgence is just incredible and very, very special for somebody who is obsessed by that world. The Wizard of Oz has been in my life since I was a little girl, so it was, you might be surprised to hear this, it was a Christmas Day TV staple in Yorkshire, England, where I grew up. So Christmas morning was sit down and watch The Wizard of Oz. So my Christmas memories are partly traumatizing because, because of the flying monkeys and the Wicked Witch cycling past. But I just, as I think anybody who's loved The Wizard of Oz, and I assume we've lots of fans of The Wizard of Oz in the room, there's just something about that story that I think is pure heart. It's the classic fairy tale, and it touches you in a way that it's hard to forget. And then the movie and the iconic performance by Judy Garland and the songs, it just adds more and more and more. I wanted to play Dorothy in the school musical when I was 16. I was denied the opportunity, but I was Eliza Doolittle the year after. So yeah, I watched the performances through gritted teeth. I'm having my moment now, though. It just took a few decades, but I interestingly, in 2009, I first had an idea of writing a sort of contemporary retelling of The Wizard of Oz. set in Dublin, a little play on the Emerald Isle, the Emerald City. And I started to write that story. It was about 20,000 words, and it is terrible. So I abandoned it, rightly so, and sort of left the idea behind. And then in September of 2022, I was trying to land on an idea for this 12th novel. And for the first time in my career, 2 other ideas I pitched to my editors haven't quite worked for them. So I found myself a little stuck. And I picked up off my bookshelf a copy of Wicked by Gregory Maguire, and I thought, well, I did always want to write a story about the Wizard of Oz, but this is the version that's clever and been done. So I put it down, went for a walk, Auntie Em popped into my head. That's the only way I can describe it. And I just stopped in my tracks because I'd never considered her. I'd never stopped to think, who is she? Why is Dorothy living with Aunt Em and Uncle Henry? Where are Dorothy's parents? What on earth is going on here? And that was it. So I did a little research to really figure out, what do we know about this character? And I think for most of you it's probably the movie, those scenes at the beginning, the sepia coloured, she's bustling around counting chicks. And she's not particularly endearing, she's quite brusque. Sort of brushes Dorothy aside, but Dorothy is always thinking about her Aunt Em. She's longing to get home to Kansas, to her Aunt Em. So I knew there was a lot more. And there was a line, who's read The Wizard of Oz, the original, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz? I know you've read all 14 or 15 versions that come after. But in the opening chapter, because it was, first I needed to know, can I write this woman's story? Because has it already been told? Do we know much about her? And I read these lines, and this is where Before Dorothy came from. When Aunt Em came to live there, she was a young, pretty wife. The sun and wind had changed her too. They had taken the sparkle from her eyes and left them a sober grey. They had taken the red from her cheeks and lips, and they were grey also. She was thin and gaunt and never smiled now. And I couldn't get those lines out of my head, because the immediate response to that is, what's happened? What has happened to this young, pretty wife? Why doesn't she smile anymore? And that was my in. That was really the lines that gave me the vehicle to go and write this fictional woman's story as a real person, as a real woman.
Hazel, when I read The Wizard of Oz, I was a child. And I told you earlier about how my mother lost me one time and found me in the library when I was 8. I was lost for several hours and there was a panic. Anyway, I was there reading The Wizard of Oz. Is that the only mention of what Aunt Em was like before? Because it's very short, it's very small. Is there any other that you have found that L. Frank Baum, even in his other writings, talked about, either her or Uncle Henry?
No, not that I've found. And you know, they do pop up in the other Wizard of Oz, the other 13 or 14 books Baum wrote after The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which is 125 years old this year. It's just incredible that, you know, this story has just lasted and is being reimagined and still capturing our imaginations all these years later. But no, those are the only, she sort of pops up, I think there's one of the books, she's like a princess or something in the Emerald City, but it follows that thread of a fairyland, a fairy tale. She's always a sort of a fairy story character. There's no other lines that really root her in an event that happened before Dorothy. That's a good title. Before Dorothy came into her and Henry's life. So I needed to know how had that happened and what had happened to Emily and Henry.
And the funny thing is the lines that he wrote, they ask more questions than they answer. That is basically an open door for you, your own yellow brick road into figuring out, who was she? It's really almost like, this is where I get the goosebumps, like he was waiting for someone to say, there's more to her, and we need someone to discover that. And you know, you're here in Kansas for the first time. When you're researching this place, in basically the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, it looked a lot different than it does now. We've come a long way, baby. But tell me what your research process was like. Researching across the pond can be really fun because Google Earth exists. But What archives did you dig into? Did you go to the Wichita Eagle? Like, what did you find, Hazel?
How on earth did you do this? Yeah, so I guess, that insight into there has been another life here before we meet Emily with her young niece. So from the get-go, I was very clear that this was not going to stray into fairy story territory at all. This is going to be very different, historical fiction, very rooted in facts, almost the opposite of the Dorothy Adventures in Oz. So I needed to root Emily's story in real historic fact. So I started to read about the prairies at different periods of history and what historic event or dramatic event might have happened in that setting in Kansas to change her so drastically. And the Dust Bowl is one of the most dramatic events in this area. So that really made sense to me that if she's moved to Kansas shortly before, then this devastating ecological crisis that happened will have been the reason for her being changed. And if a young niece comes to live with you at the same time, what does that look like? So then I had to start reading about the Dust Bowl, understanding what that was, how it happened, how people were affected, but always with an eye on how do I link that back to everything we know in The Wizard of Oz. So absolutely museum archives, newspapers I always go to. One of the first things I go to is a newspaper archive because it gives you the human story of a time and a place perfectly. It gives you language, the way people spoke. It gives you photographs, the way people dressed. You know this. You can learn so much from one image that shows you maybe what was outside shops, what was being sold, what were people wearing, how were they being transported. There's so much information. So newspaper archives, museum archives. I read a lot of books about the Dust Bowl. I read a book, Prairie Fires Everywhere, the Laura Ingalls Wilder connected story about their experience on prairies. I also adored the Little House on the Prairie books when I was a little girl, so that was sort of in me somewhere. And I guess it's about finding the history to connect to the story, so things like the dust storms being an equivalent, terrifying, malevolent, dark presence in Before Dorothy to mirror the Wicked Witch that Dorothy encounters in Oz. So it was always about finding similarities or things that make sense. One of the most amazing things I read was the rainmakers who travelled around the prairies.
I love that part of this book.
No spoilers, I have to be careful.
We do.
What can we tell you? But the connection of, at a time of utter despair when people were, on their knees, literally, and, everything they'd hoped for was disappearing turning to dust in front of their eyes. Men moved around the prairies promising to conjure the rain. A little bit of magic in their chemicals and being able to change the weather to bring rain and almost preying on the desperation of people at the time. So again, the facts of those charlatans may connect into something else from The Wizard of Oz. So it was really great to find lots of historical reference that makes The Wizard of Oz connect into Before Dorothy and vice versa, and that was really important.
You also had a literal wealth of fiction, backstory, forward story, split off all of these different things. And when I got to page 19 and I saw two words, the words were defying gravity, I said, uh-oh. I'm just over here as a Kansan in my total Wicked era, and we're going to drop Easter eggs like that. And then I started counting, and then I started marking them with my daughter's rainbow-colored pencil. And there are Easter eggs throughout. So if you don't know what an Easter egg is, basically that means a tiny little snippet that makes you go, oh, that sounds familiar. It sounds like maybe like something else. you were able to use Wicked, the book Wizard of Oz, and the movie The Wizard of Oz, and almost everything in between. How much fun was that for you? And did you do that while you were writing, or did you go back in and just sprinkle a little bit of Glinda's bubbles on them?
A little bit of all of that, really. As I said, this book nearly didn't happen, because if either of the other two ideas I pitched before this, if they'd been accepted, this book wouldn't have happened yet. I truly believe it would have knocked on my door eventually. But it's almost like a gift. It's almost like I was being shown signs that I was on the right track. And of course, when you step into anything as iconic, as beloved as The Wizard of Oz, there is a sense of trepidation, imposter syndrome, deep breath, we're going there. But I came to this story from such a place of love for the original story, for the movie. It means so much to me, and it really mattered to get it right and to weave those in. So it's almost like the Easter eggs found me, which a lot of that is probably because I've loved this story so much. So they were in me. So I'd be writing something, and just a phrase would come out that made sense in the movie, and an image would come out. I mean, you can imagine there's lots of rainbows, there's lots of landscape, there's lots of imagery that way. But it really was, and I have to tell you, I mean, Jillian will know this, writing a book, I know it looks extremely exciting and glamorous and wonderful, and we sort of waft around at home sipping martinis, and write a couple of sentences and we're exhausted. But the reality is far from that. And it really, sadly, it really is about sitting in the chair and finding the words to make some sense that you can then go back and shape and shape and shape again. And every day I sat down to write chapters and scenes of Before Dorothy. I literally just couldn't believe I was doing it. I had a little pair of stockinged legs and ruby slippers, which is a bookmark. Some of you may have seen it, I think it's an Etsy thing. But my sister put it under my keyboard, so the Wicked Witch's legs were sticking out of my keyboard for 2 years. And I do get goosebumps still, talking about it, and stepped onto this yellow brick road, crazy world. And the Easter eggs were such fun, and I'm so thrilled people are finding them and messaging me and saying, "Oh, you didn't!" Yes, I did. But it's about, if you know them, I hope you'll feel it's a little sense of me kind of, I know you know, and we all know that you know. If you don't, the book works. And that, again, was really important. So if you come to Before Dorothy just from a love of books or historical fiction, I'm sure it's hard to find somebody in Kansas who isn't a fan of The Wizard of Oz, but that the story works. So the Easter eggs had to work as well as being joyful. So there are lots in there, yeah.
We have an audience member who marked all of them.
Would
you just wave your book in the air for me to look at? I love it. Isn't that so fun?
That's amazing.
It is amazing. But that's the thing. You have produced something that is utterly new and fresh, while also rooting us in something that for the people in this room feels like home. That is quite a remarkable thing to have done. And for me, it also makes me really think about Aunt Em as more than just this side character, which is what has become very successful for this. As I said, we're in a very Wicked heavy time in our lives, but we're also in a time where old story being told in a new way feels like a warm embrace. But you could have chosen any side character. You really could have. You could have done the Cowardly Lion's backstory. So,
well, I mean, there's always sequels.
There are. But you chose something that I think ties into your other novels, and that is women in the 20th century who are going through unbelievable real-life events. And that also took place somewhat in Chicago. So I know that you were just in Chicago yesterday.
Yeah.
So in 2 days,
it was really hot there as well.
Very hot. In 2 days, you've gone from both settings of your book. How does it feel to literally just be here in the state of Kansas, where your book was set?
It's incredible. It's so special, and honestly, I hope I can convey that somehow, because to time travel is one thing when you write historical fiction and sort of take your reader back to a place in time that none of us can get to now. That's research and that's history. But to connect back in when you when you finish a book, and as I say, the idea was 2022, so we're a good couple of years in here, and a lot of the time as a writer, you're just on your own, in your head, on the page. So to get to the point where the book is published and you can pass it over to you, to the reader, is what it's all about. It's all that it's about, and it's so special to connect into readers in the places where your story is set. And obviously Kansas is so iconic, and that was always going to be a big part of the heart of this story of mine. Chicago, maybe not as obvious, but is where The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was written. So that's where L. Frank Baum lived when he wrote the book 125 years ago. So again, it was clear to me that had to factor in. Plus another connection into the story is back to Ireland, so home for me. And again, looking at the history, so what did a lot of Irish people do at the turn of the century? They emigrated from Ireland to America and settled particularly in cities like Chicago, Boston. Really strong Irish connections. So my Emily and her family, I established as a family of Irish emigrants who had come initially to Chicago area, and that they've settled in those Irish communities. There were also Irish communities on the prairie as well. And one of the things in Before Dorothy that you'll see is where Emily's mother carries with her a pamphlet that was written by an Irish priest, essentially saying to people back home in Ireland, come to the prairies. It's a place of beauty and promise and hope, and she carries this with her all the time. And that was a factual that was a document that I found. So again, as I say, it's like the book gave me clues, and I was wondering about what would Emily's family backstory be. Again, the Emerald Isle, the Emerald City, the question of home. Home, I moved from England to Ireland. What was that like? Moving from Ireland to another country, how was that? So all those connections were in there. So it was amazing to take Emily back to Marshall Fields on State Street yesterday, where I have her working as a shop girl with her sister. A lot of young Irish women got jobs in domestic service or shop work. So yeah, it was really special to be in Chicago, even though I was literally, I'm melting. There's an Easter egg for you. I mean, honestly, you can't make this up.
We all want the bucket of water at this point, don't we?
We were driving in just now, and as we were Jillian kindly drove me to show me downtown. And as we were driving along, a plane was going over with an advertising sign for a chicken shop or something, I think. And I said, oh, it's sign writing, surrender Dorothy.
It was for fried chicken, but we can pretend.
I thought it was especially for me. And then the hot winds, I mean, it's just all going on. Yeah.
I also had to tell her that when we talk about the river that goes through our fair city, we do not call it the Arkansas River, do we? See, look at these people.
It's the Arkansas.
Yes, she got it.
Everyone knows that.
See, we're indoctrinating her already. She's
I
basically.
tell you, I'm never leaving.
That's right. Well, all you have to do is click your heels.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You're already home.
Although I can't click these, and we should probably mention the ruby slippers, because you won't find any ruby slippers in Before Dorothy. And I don't know if anybody knows why.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people in this room are Kansans and know why.
They want ruby in
That's
the
right.
book. And you're the first group of people, I think there was one lady yesterday knew it was silver. I know, isn't that shocking? I'm so pleased I got here.
Which is funny because in Wicked, in the movie, they are silver in Wicked as well, and they're silver on the stage play too. And I think that it's funny how many people know that and don't. But it's also funny because all of those little tiny L. Frank Baum and Wizard of Oz things as Kansans, I don't know how many people have traveled and have been asked when you show your ID, where's Dorothy? Or where's Toto, sweetheart? It's like, okay, yeah, I know, I get it.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things for everyone here that, like I said, it feels like home. The Wizard of Oz is not just iconic, it's literally just an embrace for our state.
Yeah.
And I think there's nothing more that we want to have come forward from Kansas than a story of hope and beauty, and something that just carries people to another place, even when there are hard times. You haven't opened your card for me yet, but it says
I
ad
haven't
astra.
because I wouldn't have been able to speak, I'm sure. So.
It says ad astra per aspera, to the stars through difficulties. Our state motto for me is always carried through the Wizard of Oz as well. You look for higher purpose in everything that you do. And I understand that lightning bolt moment that you're talking about when you're just on a walk and something hits you and you say, oh no, here I go down a rabbit hole of finding the next story that will never let me go. I'm really glad that those Christmas mornings led you to Aunt Em. Yes, I
am. And isn't it funny how, you know, those things that somehow, you know, they form core memories when you're just very little and innocent and you're just absorbing something that's purely magical, and how amazing and wonderful that can take you on a journey through various sort of detours and delays. And you know, I really believe that ideas are a fascinating thing anyway to all writers, but I really believe ideas find the writer, and I think you do often have to be patient and take time to find the right idea, and sometimes the idea wanders off and finds someone else, you know, and I think we've probably both experienced where you see somebody publishing a new book and you're like, that was my idea.
I'm going to delete that one from my notes app.
So it does sometimes take time, and I do feel this story has been, I feel Aunt Em has been waiting for somebody to notice her. You know, that sort of bustling, downtrodden, sepia-coloured in the way you said at the beginning, to bring colour to her, is, I couldn't have said it any better myself. That is all I was hoping to do, is to make her feel real and to invert that transition that's so iconic in the movie, and to bring her into colour, and then through the sort of fading of that in those lines at the start and through the dust and the dirt of the Dust Bowl, but courage, heart, everything that's rooted in the Wizard of Oz is what sees her through. And I absolutely fell in love with her when I was writing her. I really am fond of her as a character. So I hope you will all fall in love with her.
I think it's impossible not to, and I think it's impossible not to fall in love with you. My gosh, you are absolutely wonderful. What a delight to have had this conversation with you.
Oh, thank you. It's just, as I said, it's just very special to be here, and I really feel I was bringing the book home.
Yes.
You know, talking about home and one of the themes, and you know, it's been a long, circuitous route to get to you, and I just kept thinking, I'm nearly at Kansas, I'm nearly in Kansas, and I really did feel like I needed to click my heels when I got here, and the trip will be too short, but now I know where you are, I can always come back and find you.
I sure can. I think we might be ready for some crowd questions. Oh, we have them already. Yes, go right ahead.
Don't be shy.
In your research that you did, what was the most interesting or unusual thing, or something that just struck you like, oh, I have no idea?
That's a really lovely question, and you know, research to me is an absolute joy, and it's why I write historical fiction, and I partly have to stop researching and start writing at some stage because there's just too much. Absolutely, we fall down the rabbit holes, and actually a lot of research that you do doesn't end up in the book. It just forms your sense of space, time, and yet doesn't need to be in the story. One of the really lovely things I found, and again, as I said, it all had to really connect back into the Wizard of Oz, was during this time of hardship, the women, sorry gentlemen in the room, but the women are always really resourceful in times of hardship. The men were worrying about the yields and growing the crops, and was the weather going to change. The women had to keep food on the table and the children clothed, and everything ticking along. And I don't need to tell all of you about the sackcloth dresses that the women made out of the animal and grain feed sacks to clothe their children. But one of the things when I was researching and looking at images of what people were wearing, and came across the sackcloth dresses, was that the producers of the animal grain and animal feed started to print patterns onto the sacks because they knew that people were making dresses out of them. And one of the most iconic was, of course, the gingham check, the blue and white gingham. So the gingham girl dresses, and I didn't know about that. So again, as I say, the history was really informing everything, and there was another lovely connection, an Easter egg for me. So to be able to give a reason for the gingham shoes, because it was real, it was rooted in history. So, and again, I just find those human stories, anything in history that you can relate to in the present day, I think changes something from being just an interesting historical fact, something you have to learn at school, to being something meaningful and profound and important, and that you could imagine now, what would I do? How would I make my little girl feel pretty? You know, and those are the lovely things that make a character, a story, something more than just a history. Actually bring colour back to history. It makes it feel more real. So yeah, I just loved that. I loved those. And as I say, the Rainmakers as well were a fascinating detail from that period as well. Yes.
How does an Irish author end up in Wichita, Kansas? Is this your idea, your publisher's idea? How do you get the tour together so that you end up here?
Well, I'll have to tell you now, Kansas was the first thing on the list. And actually embarking on a book tour is a big undertaking. You know, I'm sure you've all been to events and you see authors, and it's amazing, and it's really the only way we can get to meet you. And there's obviously living in Ireland, the only way I get to meet you all is unless you're all coming to Ireland, like look me up and let's have a party. But you have to go and travel, and it's a real privilege to be able to do that. And it's partly with the publisher and partly in conversation with the author, because there's very practical things going on. I've got a family, I've abandoned my kids, they're having a whale of a time. As is my husband, which is, they're like, no, go, stay longer. It's fine. But it's, and you sort of have to think about, for me, it's always about where makes sense for the book, as well as where, we maybe have connected with a bookstore before. And I'm so thrilled that we found Watermark, because obviously this bookstore is amazing, has amazing history itself, has incredible local authors here as well, which always really matters. And I felt it was so important to try and come to Kansas, and to Chicago, and to wherever I've been and wherever I'm going tomorrow. But it's really special. Thank you. You sort them out. You sort them out.
I'll just go straight down the road. Yes, go ahead.
Those speed check dresses, I wore those.
Oh my goodness.
I had a great aunt that sewed wonderfully, and we were a big family, and those were party growing up.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me. This is why I had to come to Kansas. That's fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, go down the road. You're good.
I actually don't have a question, I have a compliment to you. I am, just for the room of Kansans, I've only lived here 4 years, so I'm still new. But I am very picky about how people describe settings. And when I read that this was your first trip to Kansas, I went, okay. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through the book, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and try it. You have nailed it.
Hey!
You nailed it. You nailed it.
I mean,
Oh, thank
I used
you.
to live in Alaska, and I've read Alaska books, and like, they have not been here. I can tell. The lighting's off or whatever. But your descriptions are wonderful, and I feel like transplanting the story from 1900 to the Dust Bowl was genius.
Thank you.
I really do feel like it. It almost like, not to spoil anything, I hope this isn't spoiling, almost as if it were to lead into the timing of when the movie takes place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which,
100%.
say Wizard of Oz, that works.
Yeah.
We used to see it once a year. I think it was in the spring.
Yes, that's what everyone was telling me. It was a Easter
It
thing.
was in the Ten Commandments. But,
All these family moments destroyed by flying monkeys. It's terrible.
But anyway, I just wanted to say, I really feel like you absolutely captured the prairie.
That's amazing to
It's
hear.
really good.
That is an amazing compliment, and thank you so much. Because of course you feel a little anxious, as I say, stepping into a story that's so well known, and people all have an opinion about, well, what would I have made Auntie Anne? What I wouldn't have thought of that. And being in a location, and I had planned to come, but unfortunately life got in the way. So we're very lucky that there are lots of resources that we can use to research now, sort of reading descriptions of people who were present at the time. That's really helpful. The documentary, The Plough That Broke the Plains, that was incredible to watch as well. I listened to lots of Woody Guthrie songs as well. So my house has been interesting for the last couple of years. It's like layers of detail that you sort of then assimilate in order to pull that out. So that's an amazing compliment, thank you, and you.
My question is, I'd like to hear your author origin story, like your personal.
A whirlwind tour of Hazel Gaynor, yeah.
That's it.
Very, very quickly. So yeah, my first book, published in 2012, originally self-published. So I started out with a story about the Titanic. I just choose small subjects. So my debut novel was about the Titanic, and again the connection from Ireland, where the Titanic was built in Belfast. And I couldn't find a publisher, and I initially self-published that for the centenary in 2012, and am I glad I did that, because a year later I had worked quietly on a second book, and my first book was read by an agent in New York, and she messaged me. I mean, this has never happened. I had been through 5 years of trying to get an agent, trying to get published, and I have lots of, let's call them proud rejection letters at this stage.
We just gathered them, don't we?
I mean, it's a badge of honour, isn't it, really? Yes. And as somebody once said to me, you only need one yes. And she said, the minute you give up, it's game over. You only need one yes. And I kept going, and I got that one yes. And in 2014, The Girl Who Came Home, that first book, was republished in paperback by HarperCollins. Along with the second book, I had sulkily written in fury at the kitchen table while my children were bashing their toy cars into my feet. And that's how it started. So I came to this very late in life. This is very much a second career. I've been a corporate businesswoman, miserable. I should never have been in that sort of environment. I always wanted to be creative. So yeah, it took me a while, but then I was off in my happy place. So that's it. And here we are 12 books later. I know, yeah. Thank you. Where's the other question?
I just wondered, is Kansas what you thought it would be? Like when you got here, did you feel like it?
Well, definitely the hot winds, yeah. Yeah, and do you know, it's amazing because when you're writing a book in a location that isn't your home, but also in a historical setting that isn't home to the people who live there now. So as Jillian said, Wichita in Kansas now is very different to the place I was trying to capture. So there is an extra sort of element of understanding a time as well as a place. And we came past the train station, and there was the old train up on the bridge. There's lots of things on top of things, I've noticed, in Wichita. There was a horse and a rooster and a train. I've seen the highlights, I know. It's all going in the document, But yeah, it's as I flew in, that sort of the patchwork of and it's really amazing because that's how I describe it. And there is a little nod to the aviation history of Kansas as well in Before Dorothy. There's a touch of Amelia Earhart, and there's a whole new character in this book who you'll meet called Adelaide Watson, who is a bit of an homage to Amelia Earhart and the connection from Kansas. And again back to Ireland because she ended up landing in Derry in Northern Ireland when she made her flight. So it's all kind of looped together. So yeah, the patchwork and the flatness. Really from up in the air. And I was like, I've really got that right. I'd love to see more. I would love to drive out, but another time.
Oh, yes. I know you haven't cut a lot from your book. What was your favorite scene that you had to get rid of, your baby that you did want to throw out, but it's no longer there?
Are you a writer?
That's my mom.
That explains that, yeah. Because we all know there's the darlings that we've killed along the way. Gosh, is there a scene? There's probably not a clear scene in my mind, but every book has to get cut. I don't know how you do it, Jillian. Tell me in a sec. I have a cut scenes file. I have an outtakes file. because I can't quite bring myself to delete.
I call
forever.
mine the director's cut. Or when Steven Spielberg was like, "Hey, you want the 150,000 version, not the 94,000 version? Here you go. You have to save them, right?" But I think it's important to write those, because if you don't, then you never have a full rounded picture of where they're supposed to go or where they've been. And a lot of things get cut in books are backstory.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's necessary to write that backstory so you know it, but your readers probably don't need to know it.
Yeah, it's a lot of kind of stocking fillers that you, in order to tell yourself the story in the first place, and that you just have to sort of put aside, and sometimes you think it's beautiful writing, but it's dragging the pace of the book, so sometimes it just becomes about the pacing and the structure of the book. But and I often, I don't know if you do this, I put them into my outtakes file, and I'm convinced I'll bring them back in. So I take a scene out and I'm like, oh, I'll just keep it there because I'm definitely putting those 2,000 words back in. And by the time I finish the book, I'm not even worried about it anymore.
They forgot about you too.
Yeah.
It's okay.
They're not crying in my folders. Good. Yeah, I was worried.
I couldn't help wondering that wonderful gingham dress that you had. How many feed sacks will it take?
Well, she's asking about my gingham dress and how many feed sacks would this have been. So I'll tell you, the seamstress who hemmed this for me looked at me and said, "Jillian, this is a lot." And I said, "I know." So it's got, I would say a lot is probably the right answer. Yeah. I'll do a twirl for you outside. This would have been like
It's fabulous.
a 500-pound bag, maybe.
It's amazing. I mean, if we ever needed an excuse to embrace the gingham, this
Pigtails and
this
gingham.
was the day.
We had to do it.
Oh, that's funny.
We've got time for one more question.
One more.
Leftovers.
Yeah.
Oh, she calls her outtakes file leftovers.
Yeah. We see we've all got one. Yeah. And when our books get made into movies, and we are asked to answer those, we'll be able to go, funny, I do have a few cut scenes actually.
If you need more.
Got a whole of the book. Was there one more question? Yeah.
How did you meet up with Heather Webb and start writing together?
And thank you for driving 3 hours today, is that right? No? Somebody, here she is. You look very similar. Yeah, I thought you looked very similar. Somebody, I'm chatting to you in a while.
I drove further. I drove from Andover.
It's like 20 minutes. It's okay, Hazel. You can't tease her.
Thank
She's
you.
never been here before.
How did I? So I in those 12 books that I have claimed, 4 of them I can only claim half of, because I co-wrote them with an amazing woman, friend, author, who lives in Connecticut, called Heather Webb. And we met when we were both about to publish our debuts, and we have the same literary agent. And she connected us and said, "I think you two will get along." And she was right. And we just really chatted online for a couple of years. Heather asked 9 authors to contribute to an anthology she was putting together about the Great War. And she asked if I would write a 10,000-word story, and I said, sure. And we met in a short book tour for that in 2015. And then we'd done so much research, talking about research, about the First World War, that we decided to write a book together to use up more of the research. And we wrote Last Christmas in Paris, and then we wrote Meet Me in Monaco, which is about Princess Grace of Monaco's wedding to Prince Rainier. And we had to go to Monaco, and it was terrible. And then we've written 2 more since. So yeah, Heather's, and you know Heather?
Yes,
Yeah.
she's absolutely wonderful. And I know that part of that is epistolary, correct? Like you write letters back and forth to each other.
Yeah.
So my question for you about that is, do you surprise each other with what is coming next in the novel, or is it planned out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we kind of made it easy for ourselves. The first book, Last Christmas in Paris, is written in letters, all letters, epistolary exchange between 2 friends, one guy who goes to the front and the woman who gets left behind. And that helped because we literally wrote letters to each other as our characters, and with the time difference it's brilliant because we're never on the page at the same time. So I kind of wake up and you've got mail, and it was amazing. But Tom, her character, was writing to Evie, my character, and that worked since then we've just done a dual character, so 2 characters. She tends to take one, I take the other initially, but then when we edit and we're working through the pages, we literally edit together every single line, so it's a full collaboration. And the best compliment we can have is that you wouldn't know there were 2 authors involved, that it seems seamless. I drive her mad because I'm not a planner or a plotter at all, and she is. She's very technical, and I write very organically. I almost let the characters develop as I'm writing them, and that's the only way I can do it. She doesn't do it that way, so we're sort of working on something. She said, well, let's just talk about, you know, what happens next, and what's going to happen in the end. And I'm like, oh, it's fine, it'll all work out. She's like, really?
I'm like you, Hazel. I don't have a plan till these people I'm writing about that are fictional tell me what my plan is.
Yes, absolutely. So I've learned a little more plotting from Heather. So we've rubbed off on each other a little over the years, and we bounce ideas off each other for our solo books as well. So we sometimes are each other's beta readers, sort of the first eyes before you release it to your editor, and then the fun begins. So yeah, she's been just a wonderful addition to my writing career. Yeah.
Do we have those books here?
Possibly.
Possibly. Good. There's a whole stack back there that have your name on them. So I think some of them are by you and Heather. So hopefully someone can pick those up today too.
And before we wrap up, which I think we might be in a minute, I would like Jillian to tell us a little bit about her books. She has a beautiful book called The Rhino Keeper.
Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about your work, and I know that you've another one coming in October.
I do. It's a companion to The Rhino Keeper. So The Rhino Keeper was just named Kansas Notable Book of 2025. Thank you. I just got my stickers in the mail, and I tell you, there's no greater joy than stickering an award on your own book, is there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a real treat. So The Rhino Keeper is historical fiction as well, based in the 18th century. It's a dual timeline. It is about the true story of the first animal celebrity named Clara the rhinoceros, and she traveled Europe with a Dutch ship captain for 18 years, wowing kings, peasants, queens. Her story is remarkable because it's also true. So I had to go on rabbit holes of rhino art and had to learn the word rhino in every single European language to be able to research it properly. It was one of those things that struck me like a bolt of lightning at a Salina Zoo, and it's really turned into a wonderful Kansas book, because without the Salina Zoo, I never would have written that. And without Tanganyika, I never would have met a real Indian baby rhino. And without the Sedgwick County Zoo, I never would have had a rhino keeper say, yeah, just wiggle their horn really hard and see what happens. Which I
What
did.
happens?
Nothing.
Oh.
But yeah, you gotta know if you're gonna write a rhino book.
I'm invested in the rhino.
No, exactly, and everybody is. Clara, it's a cozy book. There is some action in it. It's not for kids, which is surprising to people because the cover's beautiful and it's about a
That's
rhino.
amazing.
Thank you.
You have them here, right?
Yes, And the second book comes out in October. It's a companion. I feel like Hermione in the library sometimes. I stumbled upon a rare bit of magic when I was researching my first book about a man who was tasked with something impossible, an artist who was told by a mad king, you have to make me a life-size menagerie of animals out of porcelain. Well, if you know anything about porcelain, it explodes in the kilns once it gets to be a certain size, but he didn't know that. And so, things just happen, like you get chained to the floor, or your mistress gets thrown into the moat, and it's quite a dramatic book called The Porcelain Menagerie, and I just got back, actually. That's where I was reading your book that got all bent up. I was reading your book on the way to my setting in Dresden and Meissen, Germany, where I got to tour the porcelain factory that is still there 300 years later, and walk the same castle walls, and touch the floor, and basically just kiss the ground where my main character was. The best thing, I'll tell this in my book launch too, but there's just so many things that happen that are goosebump moments when you're in this career. We stayed at an Airbnb that was absolutely wonderful, and I thought to myself, okay, I know that my main character died here. I wonder where his grave is. And so I searched it on Grave Finder, which is a great resource for anyone who needs that kind of information. And I followed the map back up this winding street. We were downtown, and I said, well, that's our Airbnb. And it said, you're almost there, just turn around the corner. And from the window of my Airbnb, I could have looked out and seen where his final resting place was.
Wow.
I knelt in front of his
Goosebumps,
grave
right?
and absolutely cried. There are just some things that you just never expect. And to see that, luckily I was alone in the graveyard and no one saw me crying over his grave. But it's just incredible, the things that bring you around the world.
Yeah. No, it really, look where I am.
Yes, exactly.
And I think, again, I think that's a sign that you chose the right subject.
Correct.
It's the right subject chosen.
Yeah, I didn't have any choice. I never.
No
If you would
choice.
have told me when I was a child reading The Wizard of Oz in the library that I would write about an 18th century porcelain maker, I would say, huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean? So, yeah, they find us and then they never let go. So,
And good, you know, because there's many more stories to come.
There sure are.
So.
let's give it up for Hazel, shall we?